Good afternoon. This is Rick Benbow, Regional Vice President for Western Governors University, here with another installment of our Fireside Chat, where we speak with local professionals about the happenings in the Southern Nevada area. Today, we are joined by Debra Solt, Director of Workforce Training and Economic Development for Vegas PBS. Debra, thank you so much for taking the time to join us today.
Well, thanks for having me. Great to see you and be part of this. So we really appreciate it.
Absolutely. It's been a long time overdue. So glad to have you here with us today. Debra, if you can briefly describe your role with Vegas PBS.
Before I describe my role, some people probably wonder why you're even asking PBS to be a part of this, right? So my role is Director of Workforce Training and Economic Development, and PBS as a whole has been in education since the inception of public television. I mean, that's what created it is during Sputnik. So here at Vegas PBS, I actually manage a department that is responsible for online delivery of content either for wage progression, for new skill development, for certification training, along with our high stakes testing and training center, which we test in a host of workplace certifications, as well as all of the what is called the education testing services, the praxis for teachers, parapro for paraeducators, or the high set for the high school equivalency.
Wow. Now that seems a little maybe untraditional in terms of PBS. When you think of PBS, you're thinking more of just television and maybe hyper local television as it relates to the specific areas. How did Vegas PBS get involved in workforce development?
We Again, they've been involved in education, especially teacher education, for well over 20 years. But education as a whole since its inception. Our workforce initiative started in 2010 during the last recession, which some people I think will call the Great Recession, although I think COVID was the Great Recession um, as we're coming out of that. But it started as with Vegas having some of the highest unemployment in the nation, as a means of helping to retrain our citizens to rapidly put them back to work in our economy. And so we're at the last recession, a lot of our education entities lost budget, due to budget cuts, et cetera. We kind of picked up the ball with online learning in order to rapidly add capacity to the workforce system.
That is absolutely fantastic. And when we think about just in terms of being very innovative and taking the platform for folks to distribute content, taking it from an educational standpoint and then having it directly applied to the workforce is, I mean, amazing, amazing. How many, I guess, students do you service on an annual basis? And are there different areas in which seem to be more popular at this point in time?
Right now, between our teacher education and our career education, because we have career classes and short-term teacher, we're doing about 10,000 students a year. Um, and those probably some of those are replicated because teachers taking more than one class. Um, However, when we're looking at, we've got teacher professional development for license renewal and advancement within the Clark County School District. On the career side, we're servicing about, right now, we've got, um, I am actually managing right at 120 students that are in career tracks and the career tracks, these are leading to a national credential like CompTIA network security, cyber security, medical billing and coding with administrative skills, um, bookkeeping, all of the Microsoft master programs. What we're seeing right now, I've got career coaches who are being trained for career coach or for um, uh, uh, rehab counselors. for treatment centers. So they're really getting out and retraining for something we're in demand. So mental health is clearly a big issue right now. I'm seeing a lot of people interested in being able to help serve other people. We are not like a college though, because we don't issue degrees. But our programs will lead to a national credential.
That is fantastic. That was going to be the next question, at least a follow-up question in terms of the curriculum. It's designed to lead to certificates. And then from that certificate, anybody who earns that certificate is eligible or seeks maybe career placement through Vegas PBS.
We don't do placement because we're not a placement agency, but we do actually refer out to some of our local businesses who we know actually are hiring. Um, Although our students also have a career coach assigned to them at the end of their program to help them with their resumes, help them look at the job market, where the jobs are. They get a certificate of completion, and then they get the vouchers in order to pay to sit for that national credential. So if it's a CompTIA certification, they're going and getting the CompTIA. They might be getting a CPC certification or CMA, which is a certified medical admin assistant credential. So they're sitting for that national licensing.
That is fantastic. You are doing a valuable service for Southern Nevada. And just wanted to maybe take a moment and have you expound just a little bit on why workforce development and why are they so important for Southern Nevada?
Well, I think it's important for the nation right now, not just Southern Nevada. Um, and part of the talk is, as we come out of COVID, what's going to emerge, what's going to stay, what's going to leave, right? So there's a lot of talk about certifications and credentialing of the workforce. So we know that a high school diploma is not enough anymore, that people are requiring higher level skills. When you look at in Southern Nevada, the number of jobs just in cybersecurity alone that are going unfilled because we don't have people credentialed and we haven't been putting them out of our higher ed system fast enough. This allows somebody to rapidly come into the marketplace, retrain on the skills or tool up their skills, go get certified, and if they meet the rest of the qualifications, could rapidly go into some of those industries. We're looking at it with healthcare. So not only are we looking at, what's going to emerge, it's the replacement workforce for those who are eligible to retire. And I think people held on to their jobs longer if they could during COVID. So I think as we look, we're going to look at a lot of retirements. So the replacement workforce, the incoming workforce, the emerging workforce. And I think it's all going to require some kind of credential and ongoing education, where a four-year degree may not be required upon entry, but it's certainly going to be required for advancement and promotion.
Wow. You just touched on a couple of things that I've just been thinking about, again, on the road to recovery coming out of COVID, and maybe a shift from, I guess, maybe a traditional pathway where you graduate high school and then go immediately to a four-year institution. There's been a lot of talk about skill shortages and how do states, local municipalities, and even organizations address those skill shortages. Do you think maybe the emphasis on skills and competencies and certificates are a way of the future, particularly as we get on the path to recovery coming out of COVID?
I think it's going to be one of those solutions. I think one of the critical areas, though, is how do we merge all of these systems together, though, so that if somebody does get a credential, how do they get credit for prior learning as they advance? Because it will be ongoing education, continuous education, going forward. and I don't think the onus needs to be on the industry. They expect people to come credentialed. And many of our companies will incentivize the workforce for that continuing education. Our business and industries have a lot of need because of compliance issues. So they're doing enough training on the job. So these short-term skills are going to be, and the bundling of skill sets for the new jobs of the future, I think is where it's going to be.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that, and I even think about like the education of my young daughters, and how I help them with their work. The way I grew up and did schoolwork doesn't necessarily apply or is an effective method to kind of get them engaged and motivated to complete their work. And I came across some research the other day that said something about like micro learning and
Yep.
that you kind of just digest it as you go. And I think what you touched upon is absolutely correct in that education is going to be, experiences. It's going to be videos. It's going to be a book. And somehow, some way, if we are to reskill, upskill, and even new skill, uh, folks who are interested and want to pursue education, we have to figure out a way where all of those things can be attributed to or applied to a certificate, a degree, just so that we create alternative pathways for folks who may not necessarily agree with the traditional route. And I bring up my daughters simply because they're always engaged in their cell phones. But the mobility of education, I think, is just very, very important. Can you maybe speak to that in the realm of what you're doing and what you're seeing? And am I correct in thinking that that is the wave of the future?
I absolutely, I 100% agree with you. It is the wave of the future. In fact, all of the content that we actually deliver is mobile friendly, because we know people are getting it on the go. And new programs coming in. You also said bite-sized pieces. The attention span of some of our younger learners is very short. So it needs to be in manageable sizes that can be easily applied to the workplace. Because if they don't see a relevance of that learning, it's not for them, right? I think kind of the mindset that we actually went through school is it didn't matter whether we would necessarily ever use it. They said we needed it and we believed them, right? Today's learner says, prove it. It's kind of the mindset is why am I learning this if I see no applicability to it? And when you go back to our young learners, the reality is our young elementary kids are learning coding in elementary school. You and I don't know what that is. Right? It wasn't
Exactly.
part of our everyday learning. So education is shifting. The degrees of the past are becoming more irrelevant. So we're creating new degrees. Our learners want it delivered in a pathway that's going to be convenient for them on a device that they understand. They want it to be savable and downloadable at their convenience. So traditional schedules are out the door. When you look at that. So, the online delivery and alternative delivery, where if I need a blended classroom, I need the discussion points to hone a skill. Um, we're not going to be delivering it in a traditional 9 to 5. It might be at 1 o'clock in the morning. And who's available? What platform do you put it on? So I think COVID has taught us that we can use any platform in order to get our work done, right?
Exactly.
But what's the adoption rate going to be for that? And I believe that our youth are adopting it much faster than sometimes the institutions that need to deploy it, if that makes any sense.
Makes perfect sense. Makes perfect sense. And as we're moving more to this model of education and learning, uh, what can institutions of higher education do in this area to either help out or help advance what's taking place.
Absolutely advance. I think that they need to look at credit for prior learning. What does it mean? Because again, the winners are going to be the ones that make sense of what is being delivered today. In order to attract those new students and be able to adopt new degree programs that meet the needs of the industry in their community, but for that individual. Because I don't think people are going to go to higher ed for education's sake. I remember when I went to college, it was just expected. Everybody went to college, right? It's not the expectation today. And we often hear and read of the people who didn't get that opportunity. It was never in their cards. And I believe that with the way the workforce is moving today, it needs to be in everybody's cards. So we have to make it affordable, achievable, reasonable. And we need to look at the whole person, everything that they've achieved along the way, so that whatever, I think degrees are going to be customizable degrees, if you will. Credit for prior learning, let's round it out with what today's workforce needs. And I don't know what that's going to be called, in the future. But it's certainly not going to be a bachelor's. Maybe it's a bachelor's in fine work. I don't know, right? Um, so we don't know what it's going to be called, but I know that those higher degrees are going to be needed, but they need to be configured as a conglomerate of a person's lives, not just what the institution offers on its books.
That is absolutely fantastic. And as we sit here and chat, I'm just thinking about the possibilities of what a partnership with um, Vegas PBS and WGU can do for those non-traditional students who already understand that this is the wave of the future, and they need to find a way to leverage their life experiences. Either they were in school and could no longer attend, or if they had a job in a previous life where they have a lot of knowledge. I think you're absolutely right. As we look to the road of recovery in the post-COVID era, there's a lot that we can do, and I would be delighted to entertain the conversation with you even further about how WGU can help you and your efforts and your initiatives to make a difference for the residents of Southern Nevada.
We'd love to work with you. Absolutely love to work with you.
Wonderful, wonderful. Again, Rick Benbow, joined by Debra Solt, Director of Workforce Development with Vegas PBS. Appreciate your time, Debra. Really, really, really looking forward to speaking with you again.
Great. Me too. Thank you.